Well, happy new day. Happy new day to all. I am Tamara L. And thank you for tuning in to our special Sunday episode of Just Another Messenger, where we raise the situational urgency and consciousness regarding today's current event. Now, each episode of Just Another Messenger will continue to dive deep into the historical past by examining the philosophies, legal system, and political situations that continues to influence our daily lives. Now, in historical past, all nations rise and fall from hope of freedom to greed, from the tyranny upon the people. Now, the ancestors of the people today that are controlling the world ran from the tyranny of their Black leaders for self determination, liberty, and religious protection. However, they're become the dragons of today by invoking the worst form of punishment, which their ancestors escaped. Now, I hope that you're able to see in today's episode why you were never told who, what, and how you were. Now, we as a people, we continue to beg for inclusion, beg for our tyrannies to be a little more gentle, and continue to beg for our enslavement. Now, in today's episodes of Black and Curse, we're going to critically examine the legal, political, and historical implications of racial identity. Now, specifically, what it means to be classified as Black within the United States and beyond. This is the spiritual, economic, and social urgency that we must address now. Now, is Black a race, a nationality, or is it a legal construct that serves a political function? Moreover, we will explore the origins of the term Black, its impact on those labeled under it, and what it means to exist outside of the classification. Now, if you ever question the true power behind identity politics, stay tuned because this episode is for you. Now, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share, and like over on our YouTube page to be a part of the conversation. You do not want to miss this. All right, we're going to go ahead and have our disclaimer set up for you. The views, opinions, and thoughts are the protective expression of Tamara L. for storytelling and educational purposes and does not provide statutory counseling for any United States color of law jurisdiction. Now, before we get into the day, we're going to take a quick break. All right, we have these housekeeping rules for today. We're going to go ahead and get started on those. All right, we're just gonna put up our new overlay here as we have here. Continue to follow us on YouTube at Just Another Messenger. Also, you can follow us on Jam at jam_404 podcast, as well as continue to support our channels. I'd like to thank those to continue to support us financially as we continue to grow. You can support us by donations via Cash App at $ at Just Another Messenger. We're going to keep our overlay banner up as opposed to scrolling at the bottom. So we're excited about these changes that we continue to make. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the episode for today. Now, let's look at why are we cursed? Let's look at why are we cursed? Because we have become a nation that reject God's law. That means we face poverty, oppression, and war and exile from our territorial rights of which we are a part of. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at what King James Version states in Malachi 4:4. It say, but they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. Now let's talk about this vine. The vine is the nourishment of truth. And what produced from that vine and fig tree is the fruit of the Spirit. So every man, humanity, woman shall sit under his or her vine and under his or her fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken it. So, what happens when you do not sit up under the teachings and understanding of your own vine and get the nourishment of the fruit it produces? Let's talk about that. I wanted to bring forward to you a video that Taj Tariq Bey, he's known as Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey, he spoke of what happens when one does not sit up under their own vine and fig tree, and he breaks down the Nicene Creed. Let's bring that up.
Now, I'm going to read this out and use this in the future. How many of you are familiar with Nicaea? Now I'm going to read this. This is in an ordinary dictionary, and this is a brief. Listen carefully. Nicene Creed, a Christian confession of faith, adopted against the Arian heresy by the First Council of Nicaea, AD 325. What does that mean? 325 years after the assassination of Yeshua, who they branded Jesus during this council. Because his name wasn't Jesus, it was Yeshua ben Yosef. A similar creed later attributed to the Council of Constantinople, AD 381, and accepted by the Greek Church, also called Constantinopolitan and Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, a modification of this containing a clause referring to the Holy Spirit, adopted by the Council of Toledo, AD 589, and accepted by the Anglican, Roman Catholic, and various Protestant churches. That is the foundation of what is known today as the Christian Creed. That's the foot of it. That's the rock of it. That's the foundation of it. How many people call themselves Christian don't even know the foundation upon which it is built? They're going to tell you about Jesus. So don't argue with them. Give them their own record. That is not their own, that they have adopted from the Romans who murdered him. Do you understand where I'm coming from? In other words, they worship the murderers of the Nazarene and then claim to love the Nazarene. And the Nazarene brought the zodiac and the fish. They hung him on a cross and then told him that the instrument used to lynch him was the instrument he brought from heaven in a cloud of glory. They are liars, they're hypocrites, there's no truth in them, and when they speak a lie, they speak of their own father. It is not their creed. Jesus was a Moabite, and his grandmother Ruth was a Moabite, and Boaz was a Moabite. So what can you be but Moabite? More. So use it. That's a weapon against those who try to get into the religious game and try to fight you there because they don't want to deal with the truth because it shakes the world. They don't have a foundation. It's a lie. Doesn't mean that there's no good in it. Don't misunderstand that. And it's not an attack on them. It means that if you're going to claim something, know what you're claiming. And so if I claim to be Christian, I should know the Nicene Creed. And if you don't know it, you don't know nothing about it. It's sort of like, I'm a surgeon. I operate on brains. You notice I have the sign out here. Come on in. And all you come, they dragging you out the back door, walking like this. Well, if you ain't figured out yet that I can't be who I claim to be by my own works, then what else proof do you need? All you need is watch the works of the people. They show you the love. Is there love? No. There's hatred. There's slavery. There's abuse of power. And if Yahshua walked in this door now, they'd lynch him again. Thank you very much. So the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed is Christianity. They are not Christians. They can't be Christians. It's a political system disguised as religion in order to push it on the world to conquer. And they will have a cross and a crown And it says, in hoc signo vinces, which means in this sign we conquer. They don't hide it, but why should they? Because all we deal with is beliefs. We don't deal with facts. It's against our gods. Please. You know, let's save our babies.
Let's save our babies. That's the sign. In hoc signia. I want to make sure you're able to see this. In hoc signia. In the sign they conquered. Now let's get into the etymology of black. Black is an adjective. Black is come from the Latin. So let's go back to the Latin of the word, the adjective of the word. Adjective is a descriptive. Adjective is not a noun. So when you're looking at grammar, you're looking at the descriptive of an object, how it describes something. So when you one say I'm black, black what? Black what? Black is not a noun. Black is an adjective. It describes something. So let's look back at the root of it. The Latin is around 750 BC to 450 AD. Flagere means to blaze, to glow, to burn. Old English is around. So we're taking the word and taking it down the line of how it goes from etymologically to how it goes now to semantics. In Old English now, the word black was described from 1066 to 1485. You remember this is time the period in 82 was the stronghold, end of the stronghold, the last stronghold, Moorish stronghold. So the Old English, it was blade, means pale, bright, shining, glittering. Now, the usual Old English word for black was swart, swarty. That describes the complexion. Now, black was used as dark-skinned people in Old English, attested in by 1796. So black was not used as a descriptive to describe a people until 1796. So which means it went from its etymologically adjective to now is used as a noun. And because the people has not been taught the language label and to understand that, now you have deemed yourself to be a part of something that does not apply. Now let's keep going to that. Let's look at race. Let's look at semantics of race. The people of common descent. That is the definition of race, the semantical meaning of race. People of common descent, but race also deals with animals, and I'm going to show you that from the 1560s. This when they attributed race to the people around the 1560s, where people descended from a common ancestry class of person allied by common ancestry. This classification did not occur to identify a group of people until the 1560s. So when you have scholars that say, oh, in antiquity, the people were called black, that is a lie. That is a lie. You have to understand the language label. You have to, when you're reading and understand information, you have to put things back into its context in this time period of which you're reading the information and literature. Now, let's look at the antiquity of race. Now, this race in antiquity was a pseudo-genomics. Now, this was an ancient Greek pseudo-Aristotelian treatise on polygamy, and it's attributed to Aristotle, and it was dated to the 4th and 3rd century BC. Now, psychonomics was acknowledged as an art. It was an art, which is a technique with its own skilled practitioners, technicia, as referenced in a generation of animals. There you go. Race was applied to the generation of animals. So the treatise is divided into sections of theory and method. The connections between bodily features and characters are treated in detail, cataloging, for example, 12 kinds of nose and distinctive features of the cadavers. All right. So as you can see here, race was an art, and you had practitioners that were identifying the generation of the different species of race of animals. So when you say we are a race of people, you're saying you are a race of animals. All right. So let's look at this. Let's look at when race started getting associated with skin color around the 1600s. Now, as you see here, the transmission of the color terminology for race to anthropology took place around the 1620s in Europe by rabbinical literature. So let's say rabbi literature. Rabbinic literature is the entire corpus, which is mean dead. Corpus mean corpse, dead. Rabbinic literature is the entire corpus of works authored by rabbis through Jewish history. Now, the term typically refers to the literature from the Talmudic area. That's from 70 to 640 CE, referring to the Talmud and the Mishraim, Hebrew related writings. That should jump out. So, these rabbis, let's look at the note of this. That means that the rabbis were rewriting biblical history while they were describing the complexion of the people in the Bible, of the Aryan culture. So they were describing the complexion as dark, swarthy, black. These were the Hebrew people. That's a dead giveaway. All right. The Talmud, the Hebrew. So they were saying the people, the ancient people, were dark. Now let's look at the founder of racial classification, Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. They called him the founder of racial classification. That's just like when they claimed that Christopher Columbus was the discovered America. Only thing that Blumenbach discovered was the works of Aristotle. And he took the work of Aristotle that we talked about. He took the work of Aristotle. Let's go back and look at that, which is psychodynamics, which is the study of the generation of animals. He took of the race. He took the study of Aristotle, and he discovered that, but he tweaked it, and he used it to explore the study of the human beings as an aspect of natural history. And he's known for the scientific racism. He created this scientific racism, sometimes termed biological racism, and it is a pseudo-scientific belief that the human species is divided into biologically distinct taxa called races, that is animals. So he was placing the people into a category of animal race, and he was using the geographic location of the people to define them based off the animals in that area. And he classified human races into 5 groups: Caucasia, which is Caucasian. That's what you get Caucasian race from. Mongolian, Mayan, Ethiopian, and America. He simultaneously categorized the human beings as an aspect of natural history against the animal race in the geographical area. Please let that sink in. We're going to let that sink in for a little bit. We're going to let you get to understand that. All right. You must understand where it comes from. And that way you could throw away the I'm black and I'm proud. Now let's look at the legal meaning of black. The legal meaning of black is a root of segregation. As you see how it twisted and transformed from the studies of trying to define who are we? Who are we? Who are these people? Who are these people that created these systems, literature, education, writings, art, music? Who are these people that created all this? But we are calling them savages. We're calling them savages, and they're the ones who have taught us, trained us, mold us. How could they do that? How could they be of such eloquence and knowledge? But they created this demarcation line to put us in categories of animals. It became the root of segregation. This is the urgency. We are. It is a code going on. We must wake up and recognize who we are. So the legal meaning of Black created this root of segregation. Let's look at the timeline of the racial classification. As you can see here in 1600, the early colonial laws, there were no racial classification at that time. Let's jump forward to 1705. And if you actually look in the Virginia codes, it was actually 1683. In the Virginia slave code, they defined Africans as property. And in that, they also lumped in the Americans as properties. So anyone who was defined as having dark, swarthy skin were considered now to be the property of the British colonists. Now let's go here and look into the 1868 of the 14th Amendment. Now this is where the tie down really started taking place. The 14th Amendment. This is what Trump is talking about. And I know there's a lot of people don't understand what's going on with Trump, and he flip-flops because Trump doesn't understand what he's going on. But I'm quite sure he has a mandate to do something that will benefit both sides of the aisle, including himself, because that's what opportunities do. They have to make a way of escape for everyone. So this 14th Amendment granted citizenship, but not nationality. So which means after the war, after being warred upon, it did not restore the people back to their nativity. Now let's look at Plessy versus Ferguson, which it legalized racial segregation. You can also look at the Dred Scott case, and within that. Now, as we move forward down the timeline, they say, oh, okay, there's too many uprising and wars. These people, they're going to, as they continue to fight for their liberation, self-determination, freedom. Oh, we're going to throw in some civil rights. Only thing you civilize is an animal. So we're going to throw in the civil rights, which outlawed segregation, but it continue to maintain the classification of the race of animals applied to people. That was never taken away. Let's come forward with the census. The census started around the 1790s, and as they continued through the census, they just updated and changed the paradigms of the census to continue the categorization of the Black identity. Yes, it is legalized apartheid. Let's show that. It is legalized apartheid. So people always look upon our brothers and sisters over in the African diaspora and say, oh, they broke away from apartheid. You're still under legalized apartheid because you continue with the racial construct of a property of an animal classification. Let's look here. Let's look at the model of an 1800 US federal census. Look at the color of race classification. Now I'm talking to you people also that say you are white. You're no different. You are in a category of classification as well. You're deluding to your own slavery because you refuse to be who you are. So let's look at 1800. You say you were white. They said we are Negroes. They say, oh, they're Indians. Oh, go ahead and put Chinese. They even made Chinese a race. You know why? Because that is the usurpation of the nationality of the Manchurian. Okay. They said a race is a Japanese. Anything that's defined as a race is a usurpation of its original national origin. Now let's move forward and look at the 1870s federal census. And this hadn't changed since the 1870. This was the last time when they made a major update to the census. Now that means the census means to get a count of your property. So this is taking like an inventory. You know how companies have to go in and shut down and take inventory of all their property that they have and things of that nature. This is where a corporation, United States corporation, have to take inventory of their property, because you said you're black, you said you're white, then you said you mulatto, then you say you're Chinese, then you say you're Indian. Yes, it's taking inventory of its stock that is still present, because you're diluting to your own slavery and subjugation. Now let's see why the census is under the Department of Commerce. If you understand grammar and language and meaning of sentences, commerce means to trade. Why is the census, which means the counting of appropriation, under the Department of Trade? Here we go again. This is evidence that you are considered property. The Census Bureau is responsible for collecting data. It didn't say collecting names of the humankind that is present in the world. It said collecting data that directly impacts economic, money, political, money, and business decision. Money, 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 money. This is all about money, people. This is a business here. Now, let's look at the business and market influence. Private and public sectors use census data. So that's why you have this data war that's going on between TikTok and the United States for demographic studies, workforce planning, and economic forecasts. That's why they did not want that data in the hands of Chinese. That's why that TikTok war data is going on to today. And if you read public law, please read Public Law 118-50 in its entirety, and you will see that you are still commodity. And it's about the data of the people being counted as data, and how the data creates the need for economic floor for the U.S. Government, and it's actually agencies. Now let's look at the economic planning and resource allocation. Census data helps determine federal funding distribution, economic policies, and business market analysis. For whom? For whom? The keepers of the sheep. They need to know how are they to store up their property, how to maintain their property. Representation and political power. It dictates congressional appropriation. Congressional appropriation means money. How do you allocate the businesses, affecting the number of seats of each state gets in the House of Representatives? How many businesses we need to put here? How many businesses we need to put there? That's what the census entails. It's counting the people as property. Let's look at this flow chart. Let's look at the flow chart of the political and economic impact of racial classification. I created this flow chart. So this stems from my mental mind, and my mind goes all over the place. But let's look at the center of racial classification. As you can see right next to it, as its twin, is legal identity, points directly to racial classification. And look how racial classification, at the top spectrum of it, it influenced the political influence. And let's look how racial classification influenced media narrative, social control. Look at this. The bottom part of corporate profit. The census date, racial classification goes straight to census and data tracking, and goes directly to corporate profit. Corporate profit impacts media narrative, social control, and look how government policies directs legal identity, and legal identity applies back to racial classification, and racial classification directs directly to the lower end economic disparities. Let that sit. We're going to let that sit. We're going to let that sit, and you marinate on that for a second. I hope you take a screenshot of that. Let that information sit on how the political and economic impact of racial classification. Now look at the consequences of rejecting Black. Let's look at how these consequences has occurred. The U.S. utilized misleading legal campaign attacks, and they do that by way of an agency called the ADL, Anti-Defamation League. They use them as their legal eagles to attack any and everything that say they're not Black. I am a human. I have a nationality. So they attack them by ways of creating these creative slogans. Say your Moorish sovereigns claims you're sovereign citizens. You're Moorish sovereign citizens. So they create these taglines because they do not want the people that has been classified as Black, Negro, colored, African American. They do not want these people to really look into what are these people that look like me? What are they really saying here? What are they really saying? What are they saying here? So they create these consequences of rejecting the racial identity, the political trap of the racial identity. They fight tooth and nails. Let me give you a little concept what they say. They say the Moorish sovereigns claim to be descendants of Moors who inhabited the kingdom of Morocco, dodged the hijack. Dodge the hijack. Kingdom of Morocco. If you do your due diligence, everyone know that the Kingdom of Morocco, the kingdom proposition of belonging to Morocco, was just re-erected. They was just restored back to the sovereignty of Morocco in 1954. So there's no way that the people, the descendants, that's antiquity. Moors are not saying that they're of the kingdom of Morocco. It's the empire of Morocco, which signed a treaty of peace and friendship. See, they don't want you to read between the lines, the dodge and the hijack, saying the kingdom of Morocco. But if anyone understand a language and understand time period, everyone know the kingdom of Morocco was just restored back as sovereignty in 1954. So you can't be a descendant of something that was just restored back in 1954. So in that case, why did they bring up the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which the U.S. signed in 1786, that officially recognized America as a sovereign nation? Oh, but you're not going to see that. You're not going to see how they threw in a truth with a lie, a well-settled lie. They threw in the truth of a treaty of peace and friendship of 1786, but then they threw in a lie and said the kingdom of Morocco. Then they say Moorish sovereigns cite that the treaty to claim that Moors in the U.S. have sovereign status, meaning they would be exempt from normal laws and regulations. Well, you are only way you're exempt. You are exempt from normal laws and regulations when you claim to be, when you know that you're not a part of a corporation, when you know that you're not a race and of identity, when you know you're not an animal, when you know you're no longer part of a political trap. So of course you're not going to adhere to those laws and regulations. But let's see how the lie mixed in with fiction continue to play here. Let's look at that, because they say it out of their own mouth, but our people seem to not hear or see what was being said with that. Let's back this up with some factual truth here. Let's back this up. Let's back this up right here. Let me pull up this. Let me share this screen and pull up this with you right here.
Dialogued with Morocco. No country has been a friend of the United States longer than Morocco. It's not a hobby.
Yeah, they want to play with me like that. All right. No, they're on a play today.
To recognize us back in 1777. But we're not satisfied with simply having a friendship that is long-standing. We want one that is dynamic.
I'm going to roll that back because they played a game right there.
I told my team we need to start a strategic dialogue with Morocco. No country has been a friend of the United States longer than Morocco. You were the first nation to recognize us back in 1777. But we're not satisfied with.
Okay, did you hear that? She said 1777. 1777. So if Morocco was the first nation that recognized a new nation forming in 1777, now, how could you say that you're descendant of the kingdom of Morocco? Dodge the hijack. Dodge the hijack here. So this is how you know that they send out a campaign. They utilize a legal strategy. When I say there's a difference between legal and lawful. Lawful is divine. Legal is statute, codes, and ordinance and jurisprudence. These are the laws in which they are made up. So the U.S. utilized misleading legal campaign attacks against the people who refuse to continue to be a part of the political trap of racial identity of Black. All right. Now, moving forward, what are the solutions? I'm not going to hold you long today because when there's an urgency of solution. Moving forward, what are the solutions? We must know who we are. Separate and unite for divine and national recognition. We must be who we are. We are not animals. We are not Black. We are not Negro. We are not colored. We are not African American. We are not a race. A race is animals. We are the beginning. We are the Asiatic human, which there is no date attached to who we are. We must understand our sovereignty, our sovereign power, and we must move with swift urgency for self-determination. Nationality must be our daily talk of the day, not this boycott, this one-day boycott to continue to be a part of something that no longer and was not ever set up for us to be a part of. Now, I have a book coming out called Sacred Selfishness on April the 22nd, 2025. And it's the art of loving without losing yourself. And this book will teach you how to love from abundance, not scarcity, how to prioritize yourself without guilt, and how to love deeply while standing fully in your power. And it's time to embrace the most radical act of love, and that's choosing yourself. And in order, when you choose yourself, you must stand up and be counted as the national people that we are through our sovereignty and self-determination. Now, this was our Sunday service. I hope that you enjoyed it. And I hope that the message is clear. And I hope that we are moving forward in a way till we get off and under the spell of this political trap, of racial identity, of being called Black. Thank you for tuning in to our special Sunday service edition I look forward to meeting you on Wednesday. Please continue. We tune in every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're not monetizing on YouTube. Continue to support us via Cash App at JustAnotherMessenger. Also, if you'd like to be a part of the show, send an email to JustAnotherMessengerPodcast at gmail.com. Like I said, like, comment, share, subscribe on YouTube at Just Another Messenger. And I thank you very much for tuning in to our special Sunday broadcast. Have a good day, everyone.